America is an amazing country filled with wonderful people who do incredible things. But too often, the media and liberal politicians ignore big parts of our nation and the people who make it work. So I'm speaking with leaders and policymakers who deal with real problems every day. I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is Real America. Today, I'm going to be speaking with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. We're going to cover everything from his role as the top Republican in the House to the significance of winning back the majority next November. Kevin, welcome to Real America Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on my podcast to start the new year.
Well, thank you. I've been waiting all last year to finally go, but it's a way to start it right in January.
I invited you early. It just took you a long time. Our schedules were so busy.
My people talking to your people.
I know, our people got together. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You have done a fabulous job. Before we start, before you ask me any questions, I want to thank you because I will tell you, working with the RNC, going across the country, I see you everywhere. From the day I met you, you're a happy conservative.
Thank you.
And that's really what Reagan would talk about. If you believe that your philosophies bring people more freedom, we should be happy about it. And I've just watched the growth of this party, and I thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. That's so nice. I do. I remember when we met, when I first started as RNC chair, and we just hit it off. You're from California. My husband's from California. You give the best speeches. I wish everybody could hear you on the stump because you're so great when you talk about your story. Can you give a little snippet of your story, how you came to Congress, being a business owner, winning the lottery, just a little bit?
I will tell you this story. All right. So I'm born and raised in Bakersfield, California.
Okay.
Very, very proud of Bakersfield.
That's Southern, right? Is that Southern California?
Central Valley.
Okay, Central Valley.
It's a little north of Los Angeles. People.
Okay,
it's called the Central Valley. If you ever read The Grapes of Wrath, it's the shanty town that people came to. So my father was a firefighter. My mom worked and also raised us as well. And I was the youngest in the family. When I got out of high school, my folks didn't have great wealth, so they didn't have money to send me away to college. So I went to junior college, but they always instilled in me a work ethic, right?
Okay.
And so I always had a job, but I was going to community college, and I met this guy. He owned a liquor store, but he had a car dealer's license. I'll leave it to you to figure out how I met him. But Bakersfield's not far from Los Angeles, about 2 hours. And so I would pay him $100 to take me to the car auction. And this car auction is down at the fairgrounds in Los Angeles, where all the car dealers bring their trade-ins, but you got to be a dealer to go in there and buy. And I would buy and sell cars, and I would flip them to pay my way through college.
And what would you usually get on your flip? Like, was there a good margin, or?
I would usually make about $2,000 to $3,000 per car.
No way.
No, and I was spending about $7,000 on a car. It was a great risk, right? And now it's illegal, but I didn't know it when I was doing it. I didn't know I was breaking the law.
We won't tell anybody.
No one will know.
No one will ever know.
And so as I'm doing this, and you go to community college, what do you do on the weekends? You go visit your friends who are away at college. My best friend, he was the running back up at Stanford. I had some friends at SEN, and I had a lot of friends down at San Diego State. So this one weekend, I'm going to pick up my friend. We're going to go to San Diego State for the weekend. But before we go, I pick him up and I go to the grocery store, Food Town Market in River Boulevard, and I'm going to cash a check so I can get some money for the weekend. And something happened the day before. The lottery just started in California. Now, not lotto, but just the lottery. The scratch-off.
Okay.
So it started the day before. And so as I'm cashing the check, I buy a lottery ticket, and I won the lottery. True story. It's 1985. I won $5,000. That's the most you can win.
That's amazing.
And think about it. It's Friday night. I'm 20 years old. I just won $5,000 before all this inflation in 85, and I end up 10 minutes from Tijuana. Right. So I come back, I take my folks to dinner, I give my brother and sister each $100, and I take a majority of the rest of the money, I put it all in one stock because I believe in taking risk. I made 30% of my money in 6 weeks. I did pretty well.
What stock was it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was called Fur Vault. It was this, sold furs and it got a contract with some of the major departments.
Okay.
It's back in the days when Dallas was a top show.
Yeah.
But anyways, the next semester I decided to take a break from school. And I went out, I tried to buy a franchise, but no one wanted to sell this 20-year-old franchise. Another thing you learn about, I never give up. So I opened up a deli. I even built the counter in my dad's garage. And for anybody in small business, there's 3 lessons I learned in all my business. You're the first to work, you're the last to leave, and you're last to be paid. But it was pretty successful. In about less than 2 years, I now had enough money that I could pay my whole way through college as long as I went to Cal State, and I wouldn't have to work. So I sold my business. I'm going to college. And in the newspaper, the Bakersfield, California said, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman.
Okay.
Now, I did not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me. So I applied, and you know what happened? He turned me down.
He turned you down?
He turned me down. But you know what the
Did he say why?
Well, I imagine
No.
there's probably lots of
There's
reasons
probably
why.
lots of reasons. Yeah.
But you know what the end of the story is? I'm now elected to the seat I couldn't get an internship
You're
for.
kidding me.
Only in America can that happen.
Have you ever run into him since you?
Well, yeah, but this is what happened. Remember how I told you I never give up?
Yeah.
He wrote this really nice turn down letter, like if ever I could see you. Well, I didn't stop. So I go down to work and I said, look, I don't need to go to Washington and you don't need to pay me. I just want to volunteer. So he says, okay, you can volunteer for 1 month. So that month comes and I had enough money, so I'm going to college. He goes, you know what? We'd like to keep you. We'll give you $100. I said, all right, I don't need money. And that's what got me started in
No
politics.
way.
Then I got involved in college Republicans. I was the National Young Republican Chairman. That was the first time I got
didn't
involved.
know
in
that.
those.
Okay.
Yeah, first one from
So
California.
you're National Young Republican Chairman, then stepped to Congress.
I finished college. Then I went back. I got my MBA. And then I ran for the college board, the community college. I won for the community college. My first election, I ran for the Republican Central Committee.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I was the Cal State Bakersfield College Republican chair, and I remember picking up at the airport the president's son, this guy named George Bush, and I took him in my car and I took him around. He was working on his dad's reelection campaign. And I remember him when we were meeting and he picks his foot up and he puts it across his knee and I look at his shoe and he has a hole in his shoe. His dress shoe, yeah.
George Bush, George W.
George W. The guy worked hard and he was so likable and he was so connected. Then I had a guy named Jeb Bush come to my college to speak there too, his other son. And really in college Republicans, I learned a lot. And then I got involved in Young Republicans and I became national chairman. But I ran for our local central committee. I was involved in voter registration. We literally moved our county from Democrat majority to Republican.
Okay.
Then when I ran for the college, then I ran for the state assembly. And it was a tough race, but I won. And luckily, I became the first freshman ever to get elected leader.
I did not know that.
They didn't know what to do, yeah. So I served up there, and in my freshman year, we recalled Gray Davis.
I did not realize that whole history.
Yeah.
You were part of the Gray Davis recall.
Yeah, and then Arnold.
You got Arnold in.
Arnold came in, I was leader, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And then when did you run for Congress?
Well, 4 years later,
Okay.
that congressman who turned me down, Bill Thomas, retired, and I ran for Congress in 2006. And 2006 was a really tough year. Republicans lost the majority. There was only 13 freshmen. It was the smallest Republican freshman class since 1914. And 1914 is when they expanded the size of Congress. And a lot of people thought, even Time magazine had on a cover, should Republicans change the name of their party? And what I got together and we created something called Young Guns, these new young conservatives.
Yep.
And in 2010, I got asked to be the recruitment chairman. I remember going around the country talking to people. I remember I stopped off in Frog Jump, Tennessee. I met this guy.
Where is Frog Jump, Tennessee?
It's a beautiful place. It's part of America.
Frog Jump, Tennessee. That's really the name, Frog Jump, Tennessee.
Frog Jump, Tennessee.
Okay.
And this young guy comes to me, and he's thinking about running for Congress against the Democrat, and he says, oh, Mr. Kevin, I don't know if I'm the best person to run. He said, I've never been elected before. I said, well, that's all right. I said, well, I've never been to Washington, D.C. on vacation. I said, that's okay. But why do you want to run? He says, I'm watching a country change before my eyes, and I don't know how I tell my children I do nothing.
Wow.
And he ran and he won.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he still there?
No, he retired a little bit later, went back to the farm. But I tell you that story because those who listen to this, you need to get involved. That doesn't mean you have to run for office. But if you're watching the country change before your eyes, where the gas price is too high, you go to the grocery store, inflation is happening. You're watching crime across America. You see a border that's not secure. That's because of one-party rule. And if you want it to change, you can. The only way we can ensure this changing in America is we've got to fire Pelosi.
We have to fire her. I was saying earlier, I really believe this. I think she has been one of the most singly most divisive people in the history of our country. And you think about her ripping up the State of the Union. You think of what she's done, refusing to work across the aisle. Can you give me a couple of the things that she's done? You say she's burning the house.
She's burning the house down on her way out.
Down on her way out.
I
but
call
what are
her
the things she's done? You still have metal detectors. She's fining members. She won't work across the aisle.
Well, the first thing she did in the last election, and I thank you for all your help, and especially President Trump, Everybody said we'd lose 15 seats.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they had the number right, but the party wrong.
Exactly.
It was the first time since 1994 not one Republican lost. But we beat 15 Democrats, and every Democrat lost to a Republican woman, a Republican minority, or a Republican veteran. And what's so interesting is because that majority became so small, they just have a 5-seat majority, the smallest Democrat majority in 100 years. She changed the rules of the House. The first thing they did on the first day, they have something, this may be inside baseball, they have something that's called a motion to recommit. In essence, what it is, it guarantees the minority to have an amendment on every bill, just one.
Okay.
Never before has it ever been taken away. She took it away. Why? Because in the last Congress, when we were in the minority too, we'd offer it, we'd still beat them because the idea was stronger than their bad bill. Then what she did was
she took that away. The
she
motion
took that
to
away.
recommit.
So
Gone. That's historical. Never happened before.
Never happened before.
Because that's one thing she's done.
Never in the history of Congress have they ever put in proxy voting.
I know.
And think about what proxy voting is. What they first thought about it is this will only be for a few members because of COVID, that they may have to stay home for a couple weeks because somebody got contact with it. There's members that have never been back since, only to vote for speaker. Proxy voting empowers the speaker. And then she passed a rule on the first day that bills don't have to go through committee for the first 4 or 5 months. Now think about what that means. That means members, you stay home, don't go to committee. I'll write the bill in the speaker's office. I'll tell you when to come. But if you can't come, it's okay because I got all your votes in my back pocket.
I've got somebody to vote for you.
And I'll pass it. And what's so wrong is if people had to vote who showed up, Republicans would win. We'd win the vote. And she does that to invoke more power. Then she comes in and she puts magnetometers to go into the chambers. And the interesting part is nobody else is going in the chambers except members. This is where you go in to vote. So she starts off a workplace that says, it's like you're going to the airport. It doesn't matter if you come 8 times a day. You're going to get frisked 8 times a day like you're going to the airport. And what it means is I don't trust the people I work with. No, it's not staff or about, it's just the other members. So you automatically start there. Then she instituted, never before, fines for people. And it doesn't mean whether you did something wrong or not. It's whether she thinks you did so. So if you somehow went around the magnetometers, they take $5,000 from you. What's interesting, when we saw that she did, no, it doesn't happen to her.
I know.
When Jim Clyburn went around, well, you can go to ethics to object to it, but you've got to have the other party to vote with you. We said, okay, not. No, they still try to find Republicans.
It's been so divisive under her leadership. She has no interest in working across the aisle.
She doesn't want Republicans to vote for the bill. How
does she control her caucus? Why do Democrats do whatever she tells them to do? I think that's the impression people feel.
It's frustrating. She does this fear. She's the bully in the playground, right? But the thing I've always said, she's on her way out. Right? Yeah. She goes to Europe every month. It's like her farewell tour. And she's a lame duck speaker. You've watching her lose her power. But she puts the fear into the president and others, and she just tries to ram it down. She knows, and remember, when she was speaker before, she lost 63 seats. She didn't care to put people up. And there's some similarities. In 2010, Democrats lost Virginia and New Jersey, and 4 days later, they passed Obamacare. They lose Virginia again, and they come back and pass for the first time their reconciliation. Yep. They know they're going to lose. And think about this. When President Trump was in, and we had COVID before us, every single bill we took up was bipartisan.
Everything
dealing
was
with
bipartisan.
COVID.
I think what's hard for me, Kevin, and I'd love to hear you articulate this, is in mainstream America, and you and I are talking about this all the time, mainstream America, people just want to see our government work. They're worried. There is so much anxiety out there right now.
Yeah, they're scared.
Parents whose kids weren't in school, still dealing with the ramifications of that, inflation, gas prices, and they think, what is going on? And I don't know.
The question is this the America they knew?
Is this the America?
They're watching it change before their eyes.
And the media doesn't share these stories of Nancy Pelosi. You know that if you wouldn't let Nancy Pelosi, if she was in the minority, appoint members to a select committee, if you got rid of that commitment that you started about, you would be eviscerated by the press. Most people aren't paying attention to what she's doing to destroy the institution, but more than that, to not help the people they're elected to serve.
Yeah. Because remember, when someone goes to Congress, it doesn't matter what party they're in, the power is lent to them for 2 years. a constituent lends the voice. And it doesn't matter if they voted for him or not, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you need to be the voice for that area. She denies that. That's the two things you brought up. Never before in history is the speaker ever tell the minority who they could put on from their party onto a committee. She did. Because it's all about control if you watch that. The voting. She wants to control how many votes. Not going through committee. She wants to control the bill. Republicans, who could be on the committee, wants to control that. I mean, if you're picking and choosing on, you're already predetermining what's coming out. You're never getting real facts to come out of it. And then you've watched what she has done within her own party. The Democratic Party is no longer the Democratic Party. I mean, what's interesting, and at least I respect them because they don't call themselves Democrats. They call themselves a socialist Democrat, and that's what they believe in. That's what they fight for. That's the real problem.
So it's depressing to think about that, but I wanted you on to the new year as we're being optimistic because we have a path back to the majority.
Hope is on the way.
Hope is on the way. Kevin McCarthy is leading the charge. So let's talk about that path to majority. How many seats do we need to win back majority?
We need 5 seats to win the majority.
How is it looking? Give me your analysis right now where we stand.
You know, looking back to last year where you had Virginia, New Jersey, those are always good indicators early on. But when you look at, from a historical point of view, normally whichever party wins the White House, on that first off-year election, doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, normally in Congress they lose 28 seats. That's happened every time since World War II except 2 times, after 9/11 and after the impeachment of Clinton. So that's a good sign for one. If you look at the generic ballot, you've watched from a place of where it's at today, it's at a very strong place for Republicans. You watch retirements are really important because it tells you internally where people are. In 2010, they knew they were going to lose. 17 Democrats retired. Do you know they broke that 17 number retirements back in December of last year? So what we're seeing is all those indications. But when you look at the crisis and the issues, look at the issues. A border, rising prices and inflation, gasoline. You watch our standing around the world based upon how President Biden handled Afghanistan. All those are created because of one party rule and 1 year created all that. Now you look at what Republicans are doing. Parents' Bill of Rights. We've got a 5-point plan to secure the border. You've watched of how to deal with China. We've got a 5-point plan for that. We're going to come out with, and I think elections should be about contrast. You need to tell the American voter, what will you do if you entrust them with us being in the majority? If you're going to lend your power to us, this is what we'll do. And we're going to roll out the commitment to America, explaining directly. You know what the Democrats are doing, and we're going to show you what we will do differently.
I love that because I think it's so important that you don't just say, this is all Biden's doing wrong. You need to say, if you give us the privilege of having the majority, this is what we're going to do to make your lives better. And this is our commitment to the voters. This is our commitment to America.
Hold
and
us
to
accountable.
Americans. This is our commitment to everybody.
Yeah. And the other thing, so we will carry out. First thing, we'll secure our border. We'll focus on small business. We'll curve inflation, get our economic system back under control. We'll give parents the Bill of Rights to know what's being taught inside their school, to know what's being able to be read, knowing where their money is being spent. But the other thing that you're going to find that we're going to be able to do is we're going to rebuild our standing around the world, which is very important as Americans as well. But we're also going to hold this administration accountable. That's one of our roles as the majority in Congress. And right now in Congress, that's difficult because the Democrats have subpoena power and we don't. So they're getting away with items and not being held accountable.
I love the contract with America, the commitment to America. I love the numbers that you're talking about to win back the House. Let's talk about recruitment because you did it in 2010. You and I've talked about 2018. You were not in charge of it in 2018. We didn't keep the House. You came in 2020. We defied the odds. You were key to that, because of the investment you made early on to recruit the right candidate to represent the district they were running in. How is recruitment going right now heading into 2022?
I'm so proud of the people who are willing to run. It's amazing. You're right. In the last election, we elected more Republican women to Congress than at any time in the history
That's amazing.
of the party. It was the first time since '94 not one incumbent lost.
Candidate matters, and that's
It's
what
all
you get,
about
Kevin.
candidate. People always talk about
You get that
money.
better than anybody. Because I'm sorry, if you have the best road, I always say we build the road. If you have the best road and the car has no wheels, it's not getting to the destination.
Yep.
And if you put the wrong candidate in a district that they don't
even if it's a safe district, they'll lose.
It doesn't matter.
No, you want to have the very best.
So what are the things you look for when you go, this is the right candidate, this is a good candidate?
The first thing I go, I don't pick somebody from Washington.
Yep.
You've got to go to the district. You've got to have a fire in the belly. You've got to have a reason, a purpose. What is your why? What do you want to do? I also want to find that you've done something in the district before. You've been a part of something, right? Something bigger than yourselves. When I look to a Young Kim, a Michelle Steele, Maria Salazar, Carlos Jimenez, Tony Gonzalez. I mean, talk about this. Tony Gonzalez represents 42% of the entire border. He's down in Texas. Never had been elected before. Raised in a broken family. He had his grandparents. He joined the Navy at 17, excelled in the Navy.
He was a cryptologist, I think,
He comes out. This district is more than 70% Hispanic. It's a Democrat district. No one thinks it's an opportunity, especially in a presidential election. I find early with him. I just saw something. I said, I'm going to endorse you early, right? He wins his primary by like 7 votes.
That's right.
But he won his general bigger than we've ever won it down there. And I find
that was a true toss-up seat. That was a 50-50 district with the Will Hurd retiring.
Think about Wesley Hunt. Wesley Hunt goes to West Point. He's not the first to go to West Point. His brother went, his sister went before him, his brother went after him. He flew Apaches for 8 years. He's willing to run. He's going to make a fundamental difference. Derek Van Org up in Wisconsin, former Navy SEAL. Yeah. I mean, these people are so impressive of what they're doing, but they're willing to put their name on the line. And the one thing I have found time and again, I don't do it everywhere, but when I find a candidate that really is representing their district and others, I'll get involved in a primary because I want to give them an opportunity for others to see it. And it helps us to be able to win more seats. We need to compete against all Democrats.
I love that. You're going everywhere. You're expanding the map. And is there a common theme you're running into with these candidates and their desire to run? Is there something that's really driving them? Obviously, love for this country.
The love for the country and the country really changing before their eyes. That they want to do something different.
It's hard to do.
Oh, it is. And sometimes it's overwhelming. There's these people who have never run before. You look like an Ashley Hinson who won last time in Iowa. So impressive in her ability. I mean, I look to individuals that are willing to take that risk. It's going to get out of the comfort zone. So how can I help? And what's different, and this is what your listeners need to understand. Everybody always says this election's different. This is a different election.
It really is.
This is only going to happen once every 50 years. As I told you earlier in the conversation, how whatever party wins the White House normally, so we got some wind in our back. You look at where the presidential approval rating is. That's really bad for the Democrats. You look at where the generic ballot is. That's good for Republicans. But what we have in the House is redistricting. So what they're doing is they're changing the lines for everyone, except if you represent your whole state. You can lock in a conservative majority for the next decade. Yeah. For the next 10 years, they won't change the lines. So this is a real ability to do it. And I want every listeners to listen to this number, 31,751. And I'm going to tell you what that number means. But it's 31,751 votes out of more than 152 million. That's what we came up short. We would be in the majority if across the nation, out of those 152 million, that 31,751 had joined with us. Nancy would not be the speaker
And
today.
I think it's important to remember the media got it wrong.
Yes.
They told us we were going to lose 15. They just did this by 15 or 15 seats, but they told us we were going to lose hugely.
Oh, yeah.
Use a Trump word, hugely in 2020.
Bigly, too.
Bigly. But they just said the same thing in Virginia. And we won a governor's race that no one expected. They said the same thing in New Jersey. We picked up seats.
We weren't even supposed to be competitive in Virginia.
So pay attention.
Yes.
Do not listen to the polls. Do not say it's a foregone conclusion that this race has lost. The media wants to have you give up. They want you to say it's over.
They want to get in your head.
They want to get in your head.
They don't want you to go to participate. And the thing that's different from the last election, we've been out there for voter integrity. We've had a number of states that have put new laws in to show that their elections are going to be honest and open, that you can be a part of that. And the other thing I would tell people in the last election, you know what the very best state was for Congress? California.
Yeah, your state.
4 Democrats we beat. Think about that. And
but candidates mattered.
It's all about the
Young
candidate.
Kim, Michelle Steele,
Mike
Valadea,
Garcia.
Mike Garcia.
I mean, think about Mike Garcia. There's a really interesting story you should learn about. Mike Garcia and a guy named Jake Elsley, okay? They're both members of Congress. One's from Texas and one's from California. They both came in special elections in different Congresses. So Mike Garcia runs in California. His father immigrated to America for his children to have a better life. He grows up in Southern California, goes to local public school, and goes to the Naval Academy, and he flies F-18s. While he's flying F-18s off those aircraft carriers, he's a wingman to a guy named Jake Elsley, right? And they never leave each other. Yeah. And so here we are. He wins, and it's really kind of a start of what's going to happen in our election. It was an early sign because this was a seat we lost by more than 9 points.
We had it won in 1998. We had flipped a seat
in California.
In California. Yep.
Mike Garcia gets in Southern California, lost by 9 points. In the middle of COVID, they changed the election law and sent everybody a ballot. We beat them by 9. Flip it by 18. Who's never run before, and he was running against a state assemblywoman, and he's just a fabulous candidate. So here we go in Texas. Unfortunately, a member of the Congress passes away. Jake Elsley's in the state rep. He goes, he runs a special election, and he wins. Both are wingmen to one another, and they're back in Congress together. And then I'll take it one step further. We have a candidate down in Texas, Morgan Luttrell.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Morgan Luttrell. You might know his identical twin brother, Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor.
Yes.
Morgan is just as decorated. He was Navy SEAL too. And so Morgan's running in the Kevin Brady seat that was before, primary. And I'm talking to Morgan, I'm talking to Jake, very humble men. They were in Afghanistan together too. And what happened early on, you had to be on the ground to pinpoint where the bad people were for the planes ahead. So normally you go down there for only like 6 days. You only have food for that. So they're down there together. No, mission goes astray. They've got to be down there for almost a month. No food, living off the land.
In Afghanistan.
Not in a safe area, territory. This is early on in the battle where people aren't going. And here's Morgan willing to risk and run for Congress and serve his nation again.
What a remarkable group
These
of people.
These are their candidates.
I mean, we've got to elect
You
these
should be
people.
excited.
So everybody listening, you got to get involved, find these candidates, support them however you can, volunteering, making calls, voting. You cannot win if you don't cast a vote, right? I always say to people, the only vote that doesn't count is the one you don't cast.
And do not sit back and say, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't count. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
It counts more
and
than
we're
ever.
changing laws, and we've got election integrity, and we did it in Virginia. So everybody needs to get out. And Kevin is on the front lines of this. You are traveling the country. I don't know how you do it all the time doing this. I think you're going to be the next speaker. I'm not going to take that for granted.
We won't.
Because I want you to be. But if you are lucky enough to be the next speaker, what would be the first thing you would do?
Grab that gavel out of Nancy's hands and
just
bang it
grab
down
it.
for the American public. I'll tell you what, we're going to secure the border. We're going to change the rules. Members are going to have to show up to vote. To get paid, they're going to have to go to work. Bills are going to come out of committee. We're going to not just secure the border, we're going to make America energy independent again, lower that gas price for everybody, but put Americans back to work in the energy field. We're not going to look to OPEC for that. In securing our border, we're also going to focus on small businesses that have been hurt for so long. The rising costs, this regulation after regulation put on, we're going to repeal that back. We're going to have every single committee have an oversight committee. Think
I
about
love that. The oversight
every
is so
single
key.
committee is going to have we're going to hold this administration accountable. They're not going to be getting away with it. They are.
What happened with China and why they were able to get away with the Wuhan virus. Why has there been no oversight from these Democrats on any of these key issues?
You wonder about that. I'm going to tell you a little story.
Yeah, tell me. I love it.
I was at the 75th anniversary of Normandy. A number of members went. Nancy Pelosi was there too. And when we walked through the graveyards, you looked at all these crosses and stars and Davids and all these men about the same age, all dying within a few days of one another. And you think, what could America have done that day didn't happen? I wonder what are our challenges in the future? Our debt in China, right? I think, what are some actions that we can do to make sure we're never in a place like this again? And I looked to the speaker and I said, why don't we create a committee about China? Not just militarily, but everything they're doing, collecting the critical minerals, controlling our medical equipment, all these different things. Yeah.
The Uyghurs, what they're doing with the concentration camps.
I said, why don't we make the committee equal? Same number of Republicans, same number of Democrats. That is not going to be partisan. And it'll show a very clear message to China that we have one American policy against them, right? It took me 8 months to finally get her to agree. She agrees, and we set the number. We literally bring a Washington Post reporter in to interview everybody so they can lay out the article when we go. The night before, they pull out of it and say no. They didn't tell me why, but my inkling is because COVID had hit and they thought it would give Trump an advantage if we were doing something about it, right? I went ahead anyways and created a China task force. We came out with so many different bills. About 80% of all the bills we came up with are bipartisan.
Really?
Yeah. This is not an issue that we should, but why do the Democrats fight it? Why is China being rewarded with the Olympics?
Why are they being rewarded with the Olympics?
But when I look at the supply chain, it should be American ships going to China delivering products, not the products coming from China to America.
And the pharmaceuticals and everything.
Oh, they control the pharmaceuticals.
They control
when we were in the
everything.
middle of COVID and they stopped their domestic flights but kept their international flights going. And when we needed medical supply equipment, they controlled 50% of the market. We should never be in that position again. We shouldn't allow our country to be the critical minerals they're developing, but more importantly, they're cornering the markets on it. That is critical, and especially when the Democrats sit here, look, everybody wants a clean environment. Everybody's looking for other ways to have all the above energy. But when all of our hard-earned tax dollars goes to buy new solar panels, but they're just made in China, they're getting rich, not us.
Exactly. I think it's so stark because all she's about is power and partisanship. You've seen this with the committees she's put together. Nothing for the American people. You're going to be great as Speaker. I do want to end on one final note, which is a record that you set recently. You got up when she pushed through this Build Back Broke plan. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
But you gave a speech on the floor. You were on the floor for close to 8 hours. Did you plan that?
I didn't plan to be there. I wrote a speech for about an hour. I thought I'd be there for about an hour and a half, right? And as you see, I drink a lot of water. And I didn't know I could last that long, to be honest with you. But when I was down there speaking, I became so passionate. And more importantly, it's what the Democrats did to me when I was speaking that made me keep going. Like I was quoting a Democrat Congresswoman Spanberger said, we didn't elect Joe Biden to be FDR. Congresswoman AOC, she yells from the back of the room, yes, we did. I did. She says, I did. And then Tim Ryan plays himself off as a moderate. He's the biggest socialist there is. He was partnering with AOC and they were trying to heckle me. So I would just stop and say the House is not in order. And then they came in. Nancy Pelosi got really mad because I was taking her fanfare away because I kept talking. She wanted to get to the bill. So she told all the Democrats to leave. So as they were leaving, they're yelling, we're going, bye. I said, that's okay. I'll still be here because I'm not talking to you. I'm talking for the American public. And I just kept going.
I loved it. And I think for me, it shows who you are, who I know you to be. You're going to be a tough leader, speaker.
Oh, very tough.
You're going to be a tough speaker. You're going to push back.
We're going to do what's right.
You're not going to let these Democrats do what they've done to this country. You're going to fight for the American people. And we need that right now. I thank you for stepping up because right now, you becoming speaker is going to be the last gap or the last step in preventing us becoming a socialist or communist nation. I believe that.
We got to turn this country around.
And I know it's not about you. I know it's about our country. But everything that we're leading up to right now is the only hope we have. And I believe that to stop them from this radical agenda. They will stack the Supreme Court. They will get rid of the filibuster.
If they can't stack it, they'll change the number of judges so they can.
Yeah,
Every way
I mean.
they can, yeah.
They'll do everything they can. They have revealed themselves as all about power.
Yep.
It is absolute power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yep.
And that's what they are. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for working so hard. I'll just end with any advice. You said you started as a college Republican, and we have so many young voters right now. And, my son's become much more of a Republican now that he has to wear masks to school every day.
Yes.
And wasn't in school. And so what would you say to that young Kevin McCarthy? What would you say to tell him to get involved, or somebody who's on the sidelines?
If you ever thought you want to learn, get involved in a local race.
Okay.
I went down and it's not about money. Find a candidate. And there's still so much that a person can volunteer that you can't replace. And get to know about the community. Get involved in your local party. I mean, the RNC does a tremendous job. You could do things online, but get involved locally and help build. And I don't care if you live in the most Democrat area. It may start that way, but if you're passionate, it won't end that way. You will become the majority.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited to start the new year with you. I hope we end this year with a win in the House.
Let's end this year by firing Pelosi.
I love it.
Everybody go to firepelosi.com and join our team.
I love it. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for being part of my podcast. I'm Ronna McDaniel, and this is what Republicans stand for. Join us next time on Real America.